Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I see a few people are still joining. Well, we just want to welcome everybody to session number 3 of Native Spirituality, Native Strong, Creating Time and Space for Trauma Recovery and Wellness. And, you know, we developed this series through the New England Mhttc for tribal healthcare providers and those non-tribal folks who are serving tribal people. So this is all for you. This is your hour to shed yourself of any burdens, any responsibilities, any weight on your shoulders, and just relax and take in the next hour because it's for you. If we can go to the next slide. I just wanted to remind you about what the New England Mhttc is. And you all probably know that there are regional mental health technology transfer centers all around the country. There is the link, which will pull up a map. I know that everybody on the call is not all from New England, which is wonderful. But if you're not familiar with the Mhttc network, it's a really good resource of training, technical assistance, articles, support. And again, you can just click on that. You'll get a copy of this PowerPoint. But the New England Mhttc is the one region that I work for. And again, I'm Holly Echohawk, and I am from the Pawnee Nation in Oklahoma. Many of you have been on this call before and have met me virtually. And my training is in organizational behavior within a school of psychology. And I am a former behavioral health director, both for mainstream county mental health as well as tribal behavioral health. And so I'm part of the New England Mhttc team. That's a mouthful. I actually think that's a terrible name. That's just my personal opinion. But Technology Transfer Center, that phrase really means supporting innovative approaches. So anyway, that's the link. So you can click on that and see which region represents your work, and you can see what kind of resources they have. If you click on the New England Mhttc, you'll see the tribal support that we give to New England tribes and to urban Indian centers in New England. And the other thing about New England Mhttcs, which is who I work for, it's a really fabulous partnership between Yale University, Harvard University, the Center for Educational Improvement, and C4 Innovations. And C4 Innovations is a really fantastic organization based in the Boston area. It is a wonderful social justice lived experience organization that really walks the talk. Many people who work for C4 Innovations have lived experience, which is a hugely valuable asset. But go to C4 Innovations website too and take a peek, and I think you'll be pleased to see the support that they provide to communities. And thank you for putting in the chat your name and the organization you're with, and that would be fabulous, and your title if you could. So thank you, Kathy from Brown University, Madeline from Montana's Zero Suicide Grant Manager. That's incredible work that you're doing, Madeline. Ariel from New Hampshire, the Prevention Network Coordinator. So just continue to add into the chat so we know who you are and what your background is. So anyway, the next slide is just a quick thing about, you can go to the next slide, Vanessa. Thank you. Just one more little comment about the New England Mhttc. It really does make a serious effort to be culturally responsive. There's a specific outreach to people of color, Black and African American communities, Indigenous communities, which I represent, and other BIPOC, people in the BIPOC category. Welcome, LaQuandra. And again, we really value lived experience. So if you can go to the next slide. You all will, if you have been with us before, for the previous sessions, you'll know that we use this symbol, which is really just a beautiful symbol of a teepee. And, you know, it's kind of a universal symbol amongst tribes all over the country. And if you have been with us before, I might have told you all that in my personal background, born and raised in Oklahoma, my family was very involved in the Native American church. And the teepee is used as part of the ceremony of Native American church. And so wherever I travel in the country, regardless if it's, regardless of where it is, I remember one time, probably about 45 years ago, I was on Navajo Nation, and it was very different for me being a Plains Indian to be in Navajo country. And they were wonderful to me. But one night I was driving around and it was very isolated. But there in the middle of the night, I saw a teepee lit up. And I knew that that meant that there was a Native American church meeting that was happening. And it's just a really warm, wonderful feeling to see a teepee lit up at night. So we've used this visual for this series on creating time and space for trauma, recovery, and wellness. So the next slide is just a reminder of the purpose of why we gather. It's to honor tribal healthcare providers. And again, like I said, non-tribal providers who serve tribal communities. And if you click a few more, and it really is to acknowledge the loss and grief and the anxiety that we've all felt during the pandemic. You know, just when we think things might be getting better, you know, it takes another upswing, and it's been really hard, and it's been really hard for you all as in your roles as well. We also talk about the role of Native spirituality and trauma recovery and wellness, and we've had some really good discussions about that. And we share ways to regain our balance, to ways of our ability to cope, whether that's traditional tribal or other approaches that you have. And the other thing we do in this, and it's only for 1 hour, we keep it, we know your time's valuable, is we really experience a lot of joy because we look at videos, music videos of Native songs or Native dance, and how tribal and Native music and dance and language are used as healing tools. So today we are going to talk a little bit about trauma and how it affects ourselves and those people we serve, whether those are our patients or our clients, or in many cases, our relatives. So as we talk about this, because it is some discussion about trauma, just remember to, be good to yourself. Allow yourself time to feel your feelings, to remember maybe the not so great experiences and positive experience, but, just stay aware of your ability to, and the talent that you have in bringing forth your coping mechanisms. And there's no people that have stronger coping mechanisms than healthcare providers. But sometimes we don't give ourselves a quiet moment and sometimes we don't have a quiet moment to just kind of think about what we experienced, what we saw, what we felt, what we touched, and how do we regain our balance, because we're humans and it's tough to see and touch and feel and hear what we experience in our work, whether it's mental health, behavioral health, physical health. So we have to take minutes to kind of regain our balance, which we definitely have the resources and ability to cope and regain our footing. So with that, let's go to the next slide. So what I want to talk about today and share with you all information about, and some of my personal experiences, if you want to hear some stories. Today is a National Day of Remembrance for United States Indian boarding schools. And it is a hugely important day that's getting formal recognition, both here in the States and across the border in Canada with our First Nations relatives. You all probably know, especially you all in New England, that Canada really did some groundbreaking work in truth and reconciliation. And we work with quite a few organizations across the border in Canada. And when that truth and reconciliation first occurred in Canada, all of the First Nation organizations were involved in it and really gathered together, as you know, to try to guide the Canadian government on how to do a truth and reconciliation, which is really open, honest, hard discussion about what happened in the boarding schools for Native people in Canada. That was a really, really hard time. It was a time of joy because there was recognition, but to actually go through that process with the Canadian government and the organizing gatherings of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Native people to talk about boarding school experiences, the payment process that the government did to try to put a dollar amount on what happened in the boarding schools. It's a huge effort, and it really took a tremendous amount of work from the First Nations organizations to work through that process, which is still continuing. But today is also the first annual National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in Canada. So the fact that governments are really now having to and wanting to recognize and have open discussion about the boarding schools is really important. So you may or may not know, but there were thousands and thousands and thousands of Indigenous children who were removed from their homes as part of the effort of basically white governments wanting to fix Native people and turn them basically into white people. Well, obviously that didn't work, but it was a forced removal. And there were these boarding schools established all around US and Canada. And then some of those children, maybe many of those children never came home. Little kids to, teenagers. Here in the US, there is a National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, and I put the link down below for you if you're interested in looking at that. And there is work going on today between United States Congress and the NABS group, the National Native American Boarding School group, to establish a Truth and Healing Commission on the U.S. boarding school history and impact today. You know, and you probably have read about in Canada, the recent terrible news of the unmarked graves found outside of Kamloops, which they think is just the very beginning of what they're going to find. But there have been thousands and thousands of unmarked graves outside of these boarding schools. So, so today's the National Day of Remembrance, and people are wearing orange. That's my shirt. So if you see Native people wearing orange today, it's in recognition of the boarding school remembrance. And but the upside of this, the good news about this is because we have a Native person in the U.S. government as the leading the United States Department of Interior, Secretary Deb Haaland, she is starting an investigation under her authority of the United States boarding school trauma that occurred and the impact on today's Native people. So it's a day of remembrance. And if you can move to the next slide, Vanessa, please. So I want to share with you as our opening and a wonderful song called Sky World. Some of you may know it. It was written by Teresa Bear Fox, who's a Mohawk Native person from New York, and it's performed by, and I don't know how to pronounce her name. If any of you know, I would love to know, but Te'aio, which is my guess. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I tried to find it last night and I couldn't find a way to pronounce her name. But Sky World is a song that was written in Mohawk and English both, and performed by another young Mohawk woman. And this is part of the lyrics to it. Let's put our minds together as one and remember those who have passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete. They are living peacefully in the sky world. So we're going to listen to this. I hope you enjoyed it. It's quite beautiful. Please think about people that you have loved and lost. And I hope this song brings you peace.
Te wā tūtano ye tie yagak ne lona to hetsu te ye tino wala ne akwe ku skana akahak ne kalu yage honu ayo ea we hana yo ea he yo hayo ea Hana yo ho ea he, hayo ea, hana yo ea yo ho ea, hana yo ea he. Let's put our minds together as one and remember the ones who passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete, they are living peacefully in the sky world, in the sky world. Ayo ea, wehana yo ea he yo hayo ea, hana yo ea he, hayo ea, hana yo ea yo ea, hana yo ea he. Ula te wā tūtano ye tie yagak ne lona to hetsu te ye tino wala ne akwe ku skana akahak 내가 루야게 노노 하여호웨야 왜 하나요 호웨야 해요 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 하요 호웨야 요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 Let's put our minds together as one and remember the ones who passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete, they are living peacefully in the sky world. In the sky world. 하여호웨야 왜 하나요 호웨야 해요 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 하요 호웨야 요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 올라 때와 또 단어의 뒤에 향락 Nelona to hitsu Te tino wala dune agwegu skana akahak Ne kalu yage lonu Hayo hoea We hana yo hoea heyo Hayo hayo hoea Hana yo hoea he Hayo hayo hoea Hanayo hayo hoea yo hoea Hanayo hoea he Let's put our minds together as one and remember the ones who passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete, they are living peacefully in the sky world. In the sky world. 하여호웨야 왜 하나요 호웨야 해요 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 하요 호웨야 요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 올라 때와 또 단어의 뒤에 향락 Nelona to hitsu Te tino wala dune agwegu skana akahak Ne kalu yage lonu Hayohoea We hanayo hoea heyo hayo hayo hoea Hanayo hoea he Hayo hayo hoea hanayo hayo hoea yo hoea hanayo hoea he Let's put our minds together as one and remember the ones who passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete, they are living peacefully in the sky world. In the sky world. 하여호웨야 왜 하나요 호웨야 해요 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 하요 호웨야 요 호웨야 하나요 호웨야 해 올라 때와 또 단어의 뒤에 향락 Nelona to hitsu Te tino wala dune agwegu skana akahak Ne kalu yage lonu Hayohoea We hanayo hoea heyo hayo hayo hoea Hanayo hoea he 하요 하요 호웨야 하나요 하요 호웨야 요 호웨야 Hana Yohoe Ahe. Let's put our minds together as one and remember the ones who passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete, they are living peacefully in the sky world. In the sky world. Hayohoea, wehana yohoea, hey yo, hayo, hayohoea, hana yohoea, hey. Hayo, hayohoea, hana yo, hayohoea, yohoea, hana yohoea, hey. Te watu dano yetie yalak ne lona to hitsu te yeti no waladu ne akwe skana skana akahak ne kalu yage lono hayo ya wehana yo ya he yo hayo hayo ya hana yo ya he hayo hayo ya hana yo hayo ya yo ya hana yo ya he. Let's put our minds together as one and remember the ones who passed on to the sky world. Their life duties are complete, they are living peacefully in the sky world. In the sky world. Hayohoea. Lehana yohoea, hey yo, hayo, hayohoea, hana yohoea, hey. Hayo, hayohoea, hana yo, hayohoea, yohoea, hana yohoea, hey.
Holly, you're on mute.
Yeah, I see. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. That's such a beautiful song. And it's a little long, but I wanted you all to hear it in its entirety. And you know what it reminds me of too is, I always say this, the brilliance, how brilliant Native people and Native young people are. Can you imagine? It looks like she was just sitting on her bed, and it's incredibly a beautiful song. I wanted to share with you all some stories and experiences that I've had. And if you all are interested, I think you might be. But I went to an Indian boarding school. I went to the Shalako Indian School, and I was there 50 years ago. I was a teenager. My sister was with me. And if you're interested, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what that experience was like. And it would be great if you all had questions and wanted to ask me anything, that you can do that. I don't know if they can come off mute or if you have to put it in the chat. But let me share with you just a little bit about the Indian boarding school that I went to. It was called Shalako, a Shalako Indian school. It was founded in 1883. And it shut down permanently in the 1980s, sometime in the 1980s. I'm not sure exactly when. It was a school that was right on the Oklahoma-Kansas border. It was on the Oklahoma side, but it was literally right on the border. And I'll tell you the good thing. I'll tell you the good part about it, and then I'll tell you the not so great part about it. That was really some terrible things. So I'm assuming everybody's nodding their head that they would like to hear a little bit of my experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So the good news, the great thing about going to an Indian boarding school is, LaQuandra, thank you. Yes, please share, I will. So the good news is we want it to go. And the reason we want it to go, my sister and I, my younger sister, is we want it to just be with other Native kids. We want it to be in an environment where it was just all Native kids. And that's what we were. We were kids. So we went, and like all of the federal boarding schools, you know, it's kind of a big building. Well, actually, there's a long drive. You often see that in prisons, actually. You know, there's a long tree-lined drive, and you go through this archway that had spelled out in kind of paint this, it said Shalako. Then you drive through that and you go down this really long tree-lined drive, and then there's the school and these big buildings. And we were from Pawnee, Oklahoma, a little town of 2,000 people, never got more than 2,000, never really got less than 2,000 people. Brick streets, no street lights. We now have one street light, so we're quite proud of that. So we were country kids, you know, like all of the students that were there. So we go, and it was exciting. It was truly exciting. You know, when you take your kids to like an amusement park or something, you know how excited your kids are, you know, in the car, and, you know, because they're going to a new experience and they think they're going to have fun. Well, that's the way we felt. So we go, and there's a girls' dormitory, and it was like a little campus. And then there was a boys' dormitory that was on the other side of the campus. And then there was a building for, there's some classroom buildings. And then there was a place where we all ate. And it was exciting because we'd never been in a place like that. We've never been in one big building that was a dormitory. It had, I don't know if it was true, it was maybe 3 stories tall. And there was nothing but Native kids, maybe 1,000. I'm not sure how many kids were there. And so we checked in, we're in the dormitory, and you share rooms or bunk beds. I think there was maybe 2 bunk beds in each room. And there were a few of the other kids we knew because they were from our tribe or neighboring tribes, but everybody else, we had no idea who they were. It was so exciting. We met Native kids from all over the country. There were Seminoles from Florida. There were Mohawks from New York. There was other tribal Native young people from the East Coast, from Alabama, from the Plains tribes, which we were kind of familiar with because we were Plains Indians as well, from Arizona, New Mexico, from the West Coast, and Alaska Native. There was a pretty good group of Alaska Native kids, and we've never met Alaskan, and we've never met any of these other tribes other than, you know, Oklahoma up through the Dakotas and back down. That was our little swath. It was super exciting to meet all these different kids from all these different tribes. That was the best thing. And we got to know each other. We got to know their songs. We would all sing together at night in our rooms. We'd sing Indian songs, and it was just super exciting for that part of it. And that was the most important part, is just to be around other Native people and the way Native people think, the way Native, and to see the diversity of the different tribes, how they talk, how they think, how they dress. It was just really incredible. So we totally enjoyed being with other Native kids. The downside of it was a lot. I saw a lot. And I saw really odd things. Like, I don't remember how young the schools was. I don't remember the breadth of the classes, K through 12. it wasn't K. But I remember it was so odd in the morning, we would go to the building where you ate. And there were really little kids there, maybe 8 years old, drinking coffee. And I always remember that because I thought that's really a kind of a surreal scene, little bitty kids drinking coffee. And I thought, well, maybe in their tribe, that's what they do. I don't know. It was just, but it was just, there's a lot of surreal things like that. And there was a lot of odd, terrible violence. I saw in our dorm, so when you come down from the upstairs where the bedrooms were, which were 2 bunk beds in each room. When you came downstairs, it was a big kind of an open area, and there was a couch. There was a couch there, and one day I came down, and there was to go to school, and there was a young Native girl who was handcuffed to the couch. Her hands and feet were handcuffed to the couch because I don't know what happened. I don't know what the trouble was. How much trouble can a teenage girl create? But she wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She was just there, handcuffed, like it's normal. Other girls would want to get locked into their lockers all day long. Like put the padlock on and lock me in here because I don't want to go to school and I want to stay in this, like crunched up in a school locker all day, which I would not do. I would not lock anybody in it, and I walked away, but somebody did. Somebody did it and locked her in because she wanted that to avoid going to school. That's a little bizarre. You don't see that. I saw, of course, the education was horrible. It was the worst teachers, teachers that nobody else wanted. They could go to the Chilocco Indian School and get a job. And I remember one of the classes, there was this creepy older man, and there was just something about him. You can tell, you can sense sexual abuse. And after the class, he would ask different, kind of point to a different girl and say, you need to stay after school. And the girl would burst into tears because she knew it wasn't just staying after school for academic. He was incredibly creepy. Thank God that never happened to me, but I watched other girls cry when he would tell them to stay after school. There was a lot of fights, almost like today's gang fights, but it was different tribes fighting against each other. So there was a lot of fights, big fights, like big groups, and they would shut the whole school down and send everybody home, and just shut everything down and then send us home. So, which was a hugely complicated thing because the kids were from all over the country. And I remember the Alaska Native kids would tell me, and they hung together. They were really quiet, and but I remember asking one of them where he lived, and because we all had to go home, and he started this long story about how long it took him to get home and how they had to drive to a certain place, and then in Oklahoma, and then they had to take a plane, and then back then the plane stopped at a whole bunch of different places, and then he would get to Alaska, and then he would have to take a bush pilot plane, and then he'd have to get in a canoe, and then it just went on and on and on and on to how he got home to his village. So it was incredibly, talking about lived experience, it was an incredible experience, and what I saw and what I didn't get, which was an education. And I remember back then they had a bookkeeping class, and 2 months before I was supposed to graduate from high school, I left the boarding school and I went back to my hometown because I wanted to graduate from my local high school instead of the boarding school. My sister stayed in the boarding school. So I went back home, and they had the same bookkeeping class, the same book. the same green bookkeeping book. And when I got there, it was 2 months before the end of the year. And I was 17 chapters behind. So I had to catch up on 17 chapters, which I did in 2 months before I could graduate from the local high school. But that just tells you how terrible it all was. And then, another thing I noticed that was good at the boarding school, it reinforced to me how smart I was. It validated to me that in my DNA, which I think all Native people have, that were really pretty brilliant people. But we were just kids, we were kids, and there were a lot younger kids than me. I was a teenager, and I was there for 2 years. It was just something you never forget. And but there was joy in it. The joy was being with just other Native kids. So that was really fantastic. So, and thank you all for some of the questions you put into the chat. Let me just look here. I don't know if children got lost during the shutdowns when they were sent home. I don't think so. And I think that some of the kids couldn't go home because it was too complicated to send them home. So they just had to stay there in the school by themselves. But I don't know if any of the other children actually got lost or misplaced. But it was a very lived experience for sure. But I learned a lot from that experience, and I always remember it. I've always remembered it. And I remember it in my work. I remember what it feels like. I remember seeing fear in kids and what that feels like. And maybe that's how I ended up kind of going into a psychology realm of work. But, but it was, when you think about the history and the impact, and if you can go to the next slide, Vanessa, this. So here's the question. What the heck does boarding schools have to do with healthcare providers? What does the topic of women in boarding schools have to do with the healthcare workers? And my answer to that is everything. Because the patients that you see, or your clients, or whatever term you use, if you're working in a Native environment, they may not have gone to a boarding school, but their parents might have, and their grandparents might have, and all of that trauma that happens carries down through the generations. So if the patient experience of the Native person in front of you may not be talking about it, but they've had a lot of experience, some good, some terrible. It also has implications for tribal staff, tribal health providers. They have their own family history, and boarding schools may have factored into that history or not, but often there is some history there. So the tribal provider experience is also impacted by the boarding school experiences. The other way it impacts tribal healthcare providers is non-tribal healthcare providers may not be aware of the atrocities that have happened to Native people. Or maybe they are aware of it, but they don't realize how alive it is in people that's sitting in front of them. And the Native patient, they might not be aware how alive it is either, that they've suppressed it, but they don't realize that it can kind of eke out in their behavior choices, in their avoidance, in their self-medicating. So there's a lot of connection between the trauma of the boarding school experience with healthcare providers today. But there's also some positive things. We all have shared trauma experiences, whether you're tribal, Native, or not Native. Almost everyone has had some kind of trauma experience. Hopefully not. Hopefully some people have never had a trauma experience. That's fantastic. most people have, large or small. But remembering what that trauma experience is like, remembering how you reacted to it, remembering what you thought about it, remembering whether you felt trapped or helpless or empowered or whatever, those experiences are shared with the tribal person, tribal and non-tribal. There's a connection there that can be made. There's an empathetic connection. So that can really, for a tribal healthcare provider, those experiences, they may not be it may not be a boarding school experience. They may not be exactly what the Native experience is, but the feeling and reaction, depending on your age and the place, that can really help with insight into your tribal patient. It can help you kind of think differently about tribal help seeking, how they seek help, when they seek help. It can help give you different perspective on engaging people into treatment or healthcare. And it also gives you more insight into compliance. Does a tribal Native person, are they kind of robotic in the way that they comply with treatment? They don't ask any questions, they just do what they're told. They take whatever they are given to them, or are they resistant, or are they something in between? Trauma experiences have a huge implication in help seeking, treatment engagement, treatment compliance, empowerment, all of that. So that's what I want to share with you today, a little bit about the boarding schools and the connection with tribal healthcare providers. So I just wanted to give you some food for thought about that. And then if we go to the next slide, Vanessa. We've always done an Indigenous land acknowledgement, but I just wanted to show you, remember the very bottom piece sentence is that our healing is interconnected. And that's the point I was trying to make about the commonality in how we react to trauma and stress and anxiety as humans. The experiences might be different between Native and non-Native, but your physiological reaction is the same as human beings. So I just wanted to remind you about that. Look, I see that there was a question about, let me pull it up again here, about how do the experiences impact the acceptance of health for non-tribal healthcare workers? It could either be good or bad, LaQuandra, depending on people's trauma experiences. They could be very hesitant to seek help from a non-tribal healthcare worker. And sometimes it's not just the fact that the person's not tribal, it's the environment. It's really important, as you all know, to have trauma-informed environments. So if you put any person, Native or non-Native, who's been, let's say, sexually assaulted as a child, and part of that is they have to go sit in a room by themselves and wait to be assaulted. If you put that person who's now an adult, who still has those terrible lived experiences, in a waiting room by themselves, that can trigger the former experiences that they've had. It can, it will. So it's not always whether or not a healthcare worker is not Native. That can be overcome by just authenticness, caring, having a warm, establishing a trusting, warm environment. People can sense that if you're authentic. Sometimes it's more so the environment, the physical environment, the traumatizing because of the environment. Something to think about there. How the room's set up, whether they're left alone, all of that. So if we can go to the next slide. because I'm getting conscious of time here. So just a reminder, this is what we're doing these series for. We use the symbol of water, which is really important. And in my tribe, whenever we are touching trauma, remembering people that we've lost, we always pass water around and drink some water. So I would encourage you all to drink some water. And then I'm going to go to the next slide because I want to leave you all with a really great video, inspiring. One of my most favorite ones. This one is called Home to Me, and it's a little bit of a segue to what we're going to talk about next month. Home to Me is a music video that Native junior high and high school students wrote. Let's see, can you back up just a second, Vanessa? Yeah, thanks. Because I just want you to listen to this. So these young kids wrote this, recorded it, and filmed it. Never touched an instrument, never were in front of a microphone, nothing. They did it in 3 days. Wrote it, recorded it, filmed it, 3 days. They had help from a professional group that came in and got them all together, but the kids themselves did this in 3 days. From nothing to what you're gonna see. And just listen to the phrase in it, keep us safe, keep us free, like it used to be. And so we have responsibility in our work to keep Native kids safe, keep them free like it used to be. And that's a lot of responsibility we have. And we're going to talk about that next month, but I want to show you this video. And then I think I have one more slide after the video. Okay, Vanessa.
Try not to be reminded by the scars from the past. Rise from the ruins, keep protecting the land. Don't take it for granted, can't neglect what we have. Stand together as a nation, express what we feel. True conversation, address what is real. Connected to the land, we are one with each other. This is our home to discover. Gotta stay on point like the fastest arrow. Bring hope to the people of grassy narrows. One piece in the land, can't go back to battles. It's fire in action, casting shadows. From old to the new, let us show you the truth. Light up the path, there's a glow in the youth. Boost you to the world, this is where we live. So let the journey begin.
It feels like home to me. 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 Sometimes it's hard to find the words to say you're home to me. Sometimes it's hard to find the words to say you're home to me.
There's my favorite, one of my most favorite. It's just so uplifting to hear these kids and see how brilliant they are. It's just a terrific video. And the fact they did it from nothing into what you saw in 3 days, incredible. So just a couple more slides and we have 3 minutes here, but the next slide is just a list of the resources I'm leaving with you today. The links to the National Indian Boarding Schools Healing Coalition, the link to the Sky World video, you can share it and watch it again or share it with people. The Home to Me link, so you can see that video again. The Native Quarantine Dance, which I love. It's such an uplifting thing. So click on that when you get a chance. And again, the Native Wellness Institute link. So you will receive these slides in an email from the New England Mhttc, Vanessa. I think you get them. And then the next slide is a reminder that our final session of this series is next month, last Thursday of the month, October 28th, same time, noon to 1 Eastern. And then the last slide is if you have questions or comments or some ideas that you would like to talk about next month, you can reach me at my email at C4Innovates, or you can call me directly. And I see there's questions that people weren't able to click on the links, but Vanessa said that when she sends you the slides that you'll be able to click on them when she sends them out later today. So listen, you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. Hope you join us next month, and we will continue our conversation next month. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.